Welcome back to Unlucky, a memoir. My name is Kat. Everyone has a story. This one just happens to be mine. So, throughout my life, I've probably sat down a million times to try to start this story and figure out how to get it just down. Just never was the right time. So, guess it was March of 24 when I sat down and really got serious and started writing down my life story, my lived experiences. And then out of that, I had a counselor who we would go over the story in 20, 30-minute chunks once a week. And the idea came of maybe writing a book. And then she had mentioned if I write a book, it should be an audio book because a lot comes through in the way I tell the story. So that's when I decided to come here and create this channel. So it's always a question of where to start. I'd say start at the beginning, right? But what beginning? I've had many beginnings and many ends throughout my life. Like where I'm at now, this was the beginning of my recovery journey and how I got here. But I guess we can go back to the beginning where it all started. I was born in Pennsylvania, not far north from Philadelphia. I was born in 1976. I grew up in what I would consider, or what I did consider to be a good family, good household, because that's what I knew. That's all I knew. So to me, it was normal. And normality for me was my parents fighting verbally, physically. We had good holidays, good Christmas, good birthdays. We played Little League. Like it seemed like it was good, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes until recently that I never dealt with and never thought was traumatizing experiences that led me to end up being diagnosed with PTSD, trauma, ultimately leading to depression and an opiate use disorder. Might as well just say addiction. Grew up in a middle-class house where both my parents worked, raised primarily by my grandmother. But since they both worked, and then they both decided that they wanted their own businesses, I had a brother who's 5 years older, and we were left to our own devices a lot growing up. Needless to say, we got in trouble. And our parents worked so much because they believed they were doing what was good and what was right by trying to make more money, to give us more opportunities, to give us a better life. It ended up doing more damage in hindsight by leading to abandonment issues and neglect. I had been told a long time ago, I was asked what the worst form of abuse is. And you'd think it would be molestation or being beaten, which none of those happened to me. But neglect. Neglect is one of the worst forms of abuse, and I never understood that. So, by being neglected, I would act out, steal, get in trouble, because I realized that negative attention is better than no attention at all. I always looked to be a part of, but always felt excluded and on the outside. I chased my brother around for just wanting to be and do whatever he was doing. Looked up to him. This led to my first stint with addiction, because right around the time that my parents got divorced, I was probably 10 or 11 years old. Remember, my brother's 5 years older than me. So when he was 16, 17, and him and his friends decided to start experimenting with alcohol primarily and drugs, I wanted to do whatever they were doing. So while he's 16, 17 in high school, I'm 11, 12 years old, didn't know any better. I found myself drinking to excess at the age of 13, 14, and 15. In those years, I also experimented with cannabis, hallucinogenics, guess it was probably by the time I was 15. It was the first time I experimented and tried cocaine. I enjoyed it. I liked it. It made me feel outside of myself. It made me feel good. Because again, my teenage years were me just trying to fit into places that I didn't belong, or it shouldn't be anyway. So with alcohol abuse and then cocaine, and then I turned 16 and that's when I discovered crack cocaine. Sooner after that, it was methamphetamine. But it wasn't until I was probably 18 when I found what I felt was my love, which was opiates. Opiates let me numb the feelings. That's what drugs did all along. I didn't have to feel the abandonment and the neglect and the traumas. It numbed me. It made me feel good. It made me not have to deal with me, what was going on inside. And when I found opiates, specifically heroin, it really, really did the trick. It made everything I ever felt go away. I no longer had to worry about the feelings of inadequacy, the feelings of not belonging, the feelings of neglect, the feelings of abandonment. They didn't exist anymore. Nothing existed except for the feeling of being high. And I chased that for many, many years. So where I grew up was directly between Philadelphia and Manhattan, two major drug hubs. So there was no lack of substances growing up. You could find them anywhere. This led to a downward spiral rapidly once I found heroin. And the weird thing was the way my brain works, I knew everything about it before I ever did it, which you think would keep me from doing it. But it didn't. It intrigued me because at the time of my life, I was really into people like author William S. Burroughs, who was a heroin addict, Jim Carroll, who was a heroin addict. He was really big in my life at the time because the Seattle music scene, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Jane's Addiction, all these bands that I really looked up to, that they had connections with opiate use disorders, opiate abuse. Artists like Basquiat, all these people, these creatives that I looked up to were opiate addicts, and I thought maybe there was something to it, which is silly because there really isn't. But I went down that path, and once I got onto that path, because of feelings of inadequacy and not belonging and not being good enough, we're still in here. The opiates took care of that, and it was that much easier for me to slide down that slope of addiction into the opiate use disorder. This went on for probably a month or two before I realized that there was a problem here. I remember going to my grandmother's house. I was living there at the time, and I didn't come out of that house for probably a week or so because I needed to detox myself from the opiates, and I swore I was never going to do them again. And that took about a week after that for me to start using again, because I figured if I only use them this way and not consecutively, I won't get hooked again. I was lying to myself. It didn't take long for me to get another habit. And the thing about opiates, each time you detox or kick the drug, it gets more and more difficult each successive time. So I stayed using for quite a while. I realized again that I had a problem. My family realized I had a problem. It started becoming apparent. I entered a detox. Went to that detox and got out. My girlfriend at the time was also an addict. She came to pick me up from detox and entered the same detox, and I took her vehicle home and left her at the detox. They wouldn't let us go together. I remember getting home to my grandmother's house, And it was a matter of hours before I was calling a friend of mine to come deliver me some heroin. And I was off and running that quick again. I remember I was supposed to pick her up on a Saturday from detox. I got up that morning, got ready, went to my friend's house who was selling heroin. Hung out, but I was like, I can't keep using dope because it wouldn't be right. She's coming out of detox. So I said, give me cocaine instead. So I bought a bunch of coke and started injecting cocaine. Got in the vehicle to head down towards Philly where the detox was. Pulled over every so often to do some more cocaine. Ran out of cocaine. Turned around. Drove back to get more cocaine just to go pick her up. I got down there, walked into the detox center I had just completed a week prior. High as a kite, thinking nobody would notice. I'm sure they did. I was hours late. My phone was blowing up. Where was I? But none of that mattered to me because I was just trying to feed the addiction, feed the feeling of not feeling me, not dealing with me. We went home to her apartment, and I convinced her and her roommates that I was no longer using heroin, I was just using cocaine. And somehow I sold that. They were all right with that until they found empty heroin baggies in the garbage. So then to get back at me, she decided she was going to start using it too. This is when my life of crime started. I had originally tried selling drugs. I wasn't very good at it. I did them all before I got rid of them. So I figured out ways to maintain my habit through crime. And I remember there was an old checkbook in the basement of my grandparents' house that somebody had taken and somehow got there. It was from a doctor's office or dentist's office that somebody had remodeled, but somehow it ended up down there. So we started making bad checks and passing them through the student union at the local college where my girlfriend attended. And that worked for a little bit. Then I started doing breaking and entering, stealing, specifically gold and other items that I could pawn and sell. In this process, I stole $23,000 worth of jewelry, which I maybe got $2,300 for when pawning it. At this point, it's 1997. Who I believed was my best friend, but probably wasn't because I had a habit of putting trust into the wrong people. But we had gotten into an argument about selling to the same people because I was still selling drugs on the side. So we weren't talking. And I remember the one day heading down to Philly, and the way we went, we passed a gas station. We were going to stop and get gas. I looked up and saw he was at that same gas station. I said, keep going, we'll go to a different one. Needless to say, a few days later, my phone rings really, really early in the morning. It was my friend's girlfriend calling me, his fiancée. And she had told me, when I answered, she said that he was dead. I didn't believe her. Part of me wanted to think she was just trying to scam drugs out of me, and I don't know. The information didn't compute. It didn't make sense at the time. So I hung up on her, and this is when she called back again, and I told her, leave me alone. I need to figure this out. Call me. I'll call her back. She called again. I hung up on her. I got up, started walking around the house. My grandmother saw something was wrong. So she asked me what was going on, and I ignored her. She asked me again. I told her that I got a phone call that said that he was dead. My grandmother knew him very well also. And as I'm telling her, I'm walking into the living room of the house, and she had the TV on, the local news station, as she would always do. And that's when I looked up and saw the house he was renting on the screen, and them carrying a body bag out of that house. And that's when it became real. And that had an effect on me, a serious effect on me. Yeah, I still think about him to this day. He won't be forgotten. He was killed in a drug raid in April 23rd, 1997 in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The police were found justified in the drug raid, but they lost in a civil lawsuit because they went about the whole raid poorly. He was shot 16 times, 8 times in the back. Body was left in the house to burn because the house caught on fire because he used a flashbang grenade they weren't trained to use. I'm not going to keep getting into specifics of this. This affected me and further deepened my depression, my trauma, and my drug use. I still remember to this day that I had to get high in order to show up at his funeral. It wasn't long after he died, I think it was August, when I caught my first set of charges for my criminal activities to support my drug habit. I got arrested and charged with 16 felonies and 42 misdemeanors. First time I ever got charges as an adult. You'd think it would have woke me up. I just wanted to get out of jail. I'd do anything. I was afforded the opportunity about 2 months later to enter inpatient treatment, which would be my first long-term inpatient treatment. It was a 90-day program. It was a very strict and hard program. I went in, completed that program. After completing that program, I went door to door from there to a halfway house, which was another 3-month program, which I completed. Went from there to a 3/4 way house. Went from there to an Oxford house, where I did well for a couple months before I started drinking in the house, because I was in too confined of a treatment for too long, where once that bubble was burst and the safety net was taken away, I didn't know what to do because I never dealt with any of the internal traumas or PTSD or any of the things that happened in my life that I was running from. So I continued to use. And for a long time, it was only alcohol. But sooner or later, it always returns to the drugs. I'd kind of gotten my life together, even though I was drinking. I got thrown out of the Oxford house, ended up getting an apartment. At the time, I was co-owners of the tattoo shop, and I worked third shift in a warehouse. I ended up receiving what I can see now was a blessing from God when I went to court for those charges. Somehow, some way, I got put on ARD, which is a form of probation where you can have your charges expunged if you complete it. I'm not sure how that happened, but it did. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This was the start of my addiction. I'm going to foray a little further and deeper into this in the next episode. I don't recommend this journey to anyone. This was my journey, my path, and luckily enough, I came out the other side. I tell people this all the time. Statistically, I shouldn't exist. I shouldn't be here. Statistics say I should be dead a long time ago. Anybody who I started using with back then, they're dead, or in prison, or they wised up and got clean a long, long time ago. I feel that I was given a chance here to come out the other side in order to help other people. That's my goal in life. It feels like a responsibility. Just like if you were standing outside a burning building, you'd feel a responsibility to tell people don't go in there. I feel the same way about addiction. And if I can't keep you from going into the fire, maybe I can help you find a door on the way out. Again, I want to thank you for checking out my page, Unlucky a Memoir. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all the above. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.